Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this, the inaugural episode of the Aces Jiu Jitsu Club podcast / vodcast, because we are very well lit and on camera for the first time in our professional careers, like actually together.
I can see your pretty
I
face.
can see your face. I can touch the man.
Look at this guy.
Oh my God. Assault. Not okay. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. If we're familiar, you might have seen some of the video content we did with the Jiu-Jitsu Times and the podcast and the interviews we've done with some of the big names in the world of combat sports. We're now doing some content with the Aces Jiu-Jitsu Club blog, and honestly, this couch is so comfortable.
Nice.
Come we talk about that for a second?
Talk about the nice couch.
My back, the chair I sit in day to day,
right.
every day with the podcast is terrible.
Yeah, my home studio is really just a corner of my room with a table and a little folding chair and me locked up in a corner with my dog running around my feet. So this is very, very spacious, very nice. Thank you very much to the fine folks at Aces Jiu-Jitsu for putting this together for us and giving us a nice studio space to put this on.
An Austin so far. It's a nice place. It's a nice little plot of land.
There's a family out here.
I think I could, retire out here one day.
I think so too.
Yeah, but and if you're familiar with our work at all, you know that Kevin and I can riff for a very long time, just chatting. But we're here with a purpose today, because there's some very big news going on in the world of professional grappling, very big accusations from some of the big athletes and tastemakers of the sport with regards to one of the most prestigious tournaments in the history of professional grappling. So these are very serious, and a lot of things have been said, a lot of mud has been slung, and one side of the argument hasn't been, we think, given as big a platform to discuss certain things. So we are here today with one of the most accomplished Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belts in America today, academic, teacher, UFC corner man, and all around phenomenal human being. Please welcome Mr. Robert Drysdale. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the show. I'm happy to be here, and appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man. Rob, I can tell you one thing. I am very happy to have you and give you this opportunity to speak your mind, because I truly believe, not only do I consider you a friend, I really think that you are a voice that jiu-jitsu needs in these times. And not just because I feel like you're this upstanding member of the community, which I kind of do. I think you're an awesome person. I always tell people I think you're the platinum standard, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. But you're a historian. I think your book is amazing. I think the work you're putting in your documentary is outstanding. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed your book. The history of jiu-jitsu, it's phenomenal, the things that you do, and it's the passion you have for this sport that I am passionate about shows through. So I think it's vital that you have this opportunity to speak your mind on something that could or could not be a little bit distasteful, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to explain to us what is going on. And quickly, just for those of you that don't know what's going on, maybe Kevin, you want to give us a little breakdown?
Yeah, so some of the key events of the past week or so, a number of high-level figures in the jiu-jitsu community, namely Gordon Ryan, ADCC matchmaker Mo Jassim, Andre Galvao, and even UFC fighters like Damian Maia have gotten involved in accusations against Rob about fight fixing, specifically in the 2007 ADCC. A lot of really big claims have been made, and a lot of really big Instagram stories have been thrown out by by a lot of people, and there's a lot of conversations, but those are the facts as we know them. And I would love, Rob, if you could maybe shed some light from your side of the aisle as to what exactly is being said about you and what you think about it.
Where to begin? I can start where the most, this is an ongoing thing, right? The topics, they change, but the target remains. The target, I think it's somewhat personal. That's the only thing I can think of, because I have lost count of how many times Gordon's come after me. And in his I came after him once. I think we've engaged online maybe 9 times. Out of those 9 times, I think one of them was started by me, and I regret it. and I shouldn't have done that. But I initiated it once, right? Every other time it was him. I mean, in fact, he started coming after me. He was a purple belt. He was already coming after me. And I don't know. I think that he's got some psychological issues, some kind of complex of superiority. I don't know what's going on in the kid's head, man. Like, he has to discredit everyone under the sun. You know, I've spent the last 4 years of my life trying to give credit to people to whom I have no allegiance to. You know, like just unburying these names and giving them a place in the sun because they deserve to be placed in, like honoring the memory of the people who started MMA, who started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I didn't have nothing to gain from that. Turns out my book is selling well, but that was a side effect. It was not initially, you know, something I had planned for. I think that these, you know, people that came before you should be honored. Like, he takes pleasure in discrediting everyone under the sun, except himself, of course, and his close friends. Everyone else is, you know, like, is a meaningless, you know, grappler because, or whatever. Like, he'll come up with a reason why. And so I think there's something, I don't know, like there has to be something personal because it's reoccurring. It's an old theme.
Before we move off of that point specifically, I would love to get some more insights from you on that relationship, just because it is a very big part of this story as a whole. Do you have any idea when your negative relationship with Gordon
Go
began?
back and tell us the first instance where you believe you were in the wrong, because I think I have a general idea when it was, but I'd like to hear from your voice when the whole situation started.
It started when he was a purple belt. He called me out to fight me, and I didn't know who he was, and I mean that. Like, I had no idea who he was. It would be like a purple belt calling him out today. Like, he would have been much meaner to that purple belt than I was to him. FYI, I was very polite. I said, man, you might be incredible. You might be the next big thing, but sorry, I don't know who you are. My last grappling match was an ADCC super fight. I'm not going from that to some purple belt I've never heard of. Not to mention that I'm retired and I have no desire to step out of retirement. So that was when it started. But there's one time, like, he said something about like his coach being best coach in the world, right? Which to me is, you know, it's a complicated issue because it's like, oh, it's a matter of opinion. I'm like, I don't think that's a matter of opinion. Like, we can factually verify some of these things. You know, some of these things you can pull track record of the last 20 years. And we can find, like, you know, the most successful coaches in history. And like, oh, you're hating. I'm like, well, so I guess I'm hating on Mitsui Maeda when I say that Gio Mori is more important to this story than he was. Or perhaps everyone else is hating on Gio Mori for not letting him, giving him his place in the sun, right? So, like, I don't think these things are hate. If I give you something that's factual and it happens to be at odds with the official narrative, I don't think that's hate. I think that's accurate history telling, right? And I think much of my motivation, you know, to engage with these guys is the same motivation that led me to get involved in this research on history of jiu-jitsu. It's history is being written inaccurately. And I understand what happened then, and I understand what's happening now. And it's very similar. It's relentless marketing. And I'm not discrediting, I'm not attacking, I'm not saying that they're not phenomenal, which they are, for the record. By the way, Flo has reached out to me like maybe 3 or 4 times asking who's going to win, Gordon and who. And I go, oh, Gordon. I think one time it was Craig Jones who asked me, who's the best American grappler in no-gi? I said, Gordon Ryan. Like, I've never said that he wasn't anything but an amazing grappler, right? Somehow that gets turned in their heads because I say, wait a second. But there are people who have done a lot more than him, which is something that's not controversial. You can back it up with facts. It drives them crazy. Oh, you're such a hater. I'm like, no, I am giving. If I say Bruno Malfacini is a more accomplished grappler than Gordon Ryan, where's the hate? I just gave you a fact. He's 12 world titles in the same division. I don't owe any allegiance to Bruno Malfacini. I've never met him. I've never exchanged a word with him. I've never shook his hand. He's not from my team. He's not a friend. But I just gave you something that's like, he's a very accomplished grappler. He's been on for 12 years, winning the same division at 12 world titles in one division. He might be the most accomplished grappler in history, right? It's competitively, like, because Buchecha competes in 2 divisions. Like, this guy competes in 1 division. It's very impressive. But these things fly under the radar in the era of, like, the internet, because it's whatever is repeated relentlessly becomes fact, becomes the reality, right? And I think that there is such thing as objective reality. And there are things that are a matter of opinion, and there are things that are a matter of fact. And when you're going to give credit to grapplers or coaches or teams, I think these things are matters of fact, and you can back them up. You can pull up the biggest tournaments in the world, and you look at the data. Oh, those tournaments don't count. What kind of pool of data is that? You select your data, and then you come up with
and that's when I think of Gordon Ryan, and again, I know Gordon Ryan pretty well. I know Gordon Ryan since he was a kid. I competed on a few Zapateros with him back when he was a 170-pound purple belt murdering everybody. And, I've watched him ascend up the ranks, and I agree 100%. Gordon Ryan is the greatest grappler on the planet right now, greatest no grappler on the planet right now. Hands down, there's not even a close second. But I will also, with you, debate the topic when we get to the point of who is the GOAT. Because there's not really a clearly definable way that we can recognize what that even means.
With the rule sets,
different rule sets, it's such a gray area, right? And one of the things that I always say is longevity. And unfortunately, Gordon Ryan's been hurt. He's had some issues that we haven't really seen a long pool of 10 plus years of success at the top of the game, which he's probably capable of. But unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to put that together as of yet. And the point I'm trying to make is that when we pull that together in that frame of reference, the reason why this last big skirmish happened between you and Gordon Ryan is because of the YouTube post you made last week or the week before that, when you were discussing the best teams in the world at this time right now. And we started to talk about Alliance, you talked about Checkmate, you talked about Atos, and the facts are facts. If you look at the totality of awards, there are more awards given to those teams than there are to the Danaher Death Squad. And it has nothing to do with the 4 grapplers or 5 grapplers the Danaher Death Squad have are probably the best grapplers in the world.
I just want to say something right now. Rob, you're known as a very smart guy. Did you kind of have a feeling that the way you answered that question was gonna lead to some trouble? Like,
I want to tackle that right out the gate because I wanted to say this. When you shoot a YouTube video, I don't do 4 or 5 takes. I get it all in one take. If there's something I don't like, I edit it out. I did request my editor to remove that because as soon as I said it, I'm like, fuck, I should probably remove that. It's going to cause a shitstorm. I seem to be in a controversy every other week. And trust me, as much as people think that I don't mind speaking my mind, but I don't like mudslinging at me for no reason. And I knew that they're going to come after me because it's somewhat of a cultish thing. Like they're very, very, you saw the reaction. It's borderline fanatical. I didn't say anything outlandish. I didn't attack anyone personally, but it was like, you're insulting. You might as well insult Jesus, but I did ask my editor to remove it. He didn't remove it. I didn't get mad at him. These things happen. I'm the most forgetful person on the planet. So I'm no one to get mad at people for forgetting to do something. And when it went online, I didn't watch the video. It was posted on my Instagram by my assistant because it's automatic. I don't get involved. Right. And I didn't watch it because I completely forgot which video that was. I didn't even know what the video was about. I just saw it and went through with it, right? I didn't really watch the video. Had I seen it, I would have deleted it and asked the guy to edit it and then upload again. It was too late. By the time I realized what happened, it was already on Gordon's page. And now I'm going, okay, the die is cast, right? And now I'm going to have to stand up by what I said, which is something I believe in, by the way. I was going to delete it to avoid more controversy. But at the same time, I don't think I said anything that's inadequate.
I watched the video. I saw it first on your Instagram page before Gordon reposted it. And I honestly didn't think there was anything wrong at all. There wasn't any someone says shots were fired. You actually even complimented the Danaher Death Squad upon they're great people. They get more media coverage, so they get a little more exposure than the other teams do. And that's a fact. But I don't think there was anything at all that was harsh about what you said. Now, the interesting part of that is the edit that Gordon Ryan posted to his Instagram page was conveniently edited to make it sound more derogatory, but that's another story.
No, you're right. And it was edited because when you edit, once again, you're selecting your data. You see the dishonesty here? Serious research. You hold on to as much data as is available. You don't select data. You cannot judge Kevin based off of one training session or what color gi he was wearing that particular day. You have to look at the entirety of the story, because if you select your data, you can come up with any results you want. Now, anyone who knows anything about research is going to agree with me. In fact, someone who understands research is going to be listening right now. Like, wait, Rob, there are people disagreeing with you on this? Who are these people? And I'm going to go, this is my answer. A lot of people on the internet have no idea what confirmation bias is. And I spent like an hour arguing with someone, trying to explain to them what confirmation bias was. And this guy just doesn't get it. And I'm like, I'm quitting, man. I'm actually trying to help you, bro. Like you look bad right now. You have no idea. But the age of the internet, whoever gets more likes or views is the one in the right. There's no more objective reality or objective truth. It's whatever the majority wants it to be. So this is propaganda. But if you keep repeating it, it becomes the truth. And I'm saying, guys, let's look at the whole picture. Exactly what you said. If we look at like how many world champions are inside that particular team, one, Gordon Ryan. You go to any camp at Alliance, Gracie Barra, Atos, Checkmate, Caio Terra, Fight Sports, you can have 10 world champions on the mats. I don't owe allegiance to any of these teams. They're not my team. Most of these guys aren't even my friends. But like somehow I have an agenda, I have a bias, I have hate. I'm like, I just gave you facts, guys. It's easy. You walk in, if you go to Checkmate right now, during any of their like main training sessions, you're going to have 10 world champions on the mats. And the media has been disproportionate. Now you can have a discussion about the nature of media and journalism. And I think that's a very valid discussion to be had. I think it's an important discussion. But to say that I said something outlandish, and I'm basically getting thrown under the bus by white belts and blue belts who are telling me that I don't know jiu-jitsu competition. Now, not to toot my own horn, there are very few people in the world who are as well positioned as me to talk about jiu-jitsu competition. I know the sport inside out. I know it gi, I know it no gi. I know it from a team owner perspective, as a coach, as a competitor in Brazil and the United States, as a show organizer, as a commentator. I've seen this sport in every angle possible. To have blue belts telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, I shouldn't reply. I shouldn't really, but it's pretty absurd. It really is. Like, I do know what I'm talking about. I'm not wrong here. And I'm able to back it up.
Okay,
and
so
I've made this case, and I'm not wrong.
We don't want to get too bogged down onto that initial incident because it obviously led to so much more happening, and I think this is an appropriate time to talk about the one of the other figures in this tale, Mo Jassim, one of the other huge voices making a lot of claims about you. Where did the vitriol start there? Just because he's very passionately talked about you and the allegations, and I was wondering if there was an origin point for that beef. Sure.
I didn't know who Mo Jassim was. I never seen him. I've never met him. I didn't know anything about him until the last ADCC. Felipe Andrew he's not my student, but he was training with me at the time. And I was trying to get him into ADCC. And I don't remember who gave me his number. I was talking to someone like, hey man, this is the guy you got to talk to if you want to get Felipe in there. So I messaged Mo and I go, hey man, can we get Felipe in there under this? This is who he is. And he knew who Felipe was, and it was very, professional. He got Felipe in, and that was it, right? After the show, and I think this is where the beef started. 1 second, alarm. After the show, and there's a number of things to be said about the last ADCC. It was a very different kind of ADCC, and I've been following. My first ADCC was 2003, right? Like I've been following it for a while. I mean, I was watching it before that, but I was present in 2003, and it was very different. Technically, it's the best ADCC ever, but that's always been the case. For those who think there's something new about that, like that's not true. It's always been the case. It's always been getting better. You can see the technical progression throughout all ADCCs. So this one was
because jiu-jitsu progresses over the course of time, and the techniques can progress. It's just the way it goes.
That's not that merit does not belong to ADCC. That merit belongs to the jiu-jitsu community as a whole, because the overall level has gone up, and everyone holds some responsibility for them. Some of the credit, some of the merit. So they are just a reflex of a much bigger, dynamic, which is the worldwide growth of jiu-jitsu. So technically it was incredible. And I think that every person in there is a phenomenal grappler. And I have nothing but respect for people it's what I've done my whole life. Like I know what it's like. It's hard to be in there. So there's no hate there. But as far as from an organizational standpoint, there was some major problems. And I pointed out some of these problems to Mo, not in a condescending way, but more in like constructive criticism. Like I think he took it personally, and maybe like things can come across in a funny way throughout text. Like when you text someone, there's how many times have you gotten in an argument with your girlfriend or wife over you write something and it comes across completely different because it's text. There's no emotion, there's no tone of voice, right? And I tend to write very objectively. I don't, hey, how you doing, my best friend? I don't write like that. I'm like to the point, like. And I think on the other end, he might have received that as me being condescending in some way, in which I really, from the bottom of my heart, I wasn't. I had good intentions at heart. And I was trying to better the show. But these guys had professional athletes who dedicate their lives to jiu-jitsu and grappling, doing a whole minute sequence on concrete. Someone could have died. You suplex someone on concrete, you can die. And these guys are full on sequence. And then you get guys walking in with costumes and the other one flipping off the crowd. And there's no criteria for the refereeing. Like every mat has a different criteria. It's like the referee barely understands. And I'm not trying to attack anyone here, but this is a major problem, guys. You got to address it. And then his response was, first of all, my referees have 10 years experience. And I'm thinking in my head, well, that means they've refereed 5 times their whole life. Like, that doesn't mean, that's not a lot of experience, no offense. ADCC goes on every 2 years. And then he goes, oh, matches have always continued on concrete. That's always been the case. And I'm thinking to myself, well, so you have an old problem. I'm pointing that the problem is repeated. And instead of like addressing the problem, you're justifying the problem because it happened in the past. And then he was making the same thing about like, the everything else. Like, these things have happened before. I'm like, and you're talking about making the Olympics of grappling here, and you're allowing all this. And this is, I mean, and I wasn't condescending, man. I really was. I'm trying to like, hey, man, like, you got to address this. I think in his defense, he was so fed up with people saying the same thing to him that he lashed out on me because I was the 10th person to repeat the exact same thing to him, because everyone said it. I wasn't the only one thinking that. It was unanimous. People who were there, everyone's unanimously saying the same thing. Like, you guys got to do something about this. It was like back talk amongst commentators, coaches, people in the community. Everyone's talking about it backstage because like, this is a major problem. They're not fixing it. And when I addressed it, he felt that I was attacking him personally. And then he proceeded to attack me. Well, I never attacked him ad hominem. He attacked me going, you know what, man, you shouldn't be talking. You've been involved in a fixed match, blah, blah, blah. And like, he went, I can't remember what else he said because I never bothered double checking, but like, he went after me personally. So I knew there was a grudge there. Like, okay. And then, and I just left it at that, right? He probably took that as the win. I'm like, if that's the kind of thing you consider a win in life, buddy, then good luck to you, like, all the best, God bless. And I left it at that. And then it died. And then the last event happened. Yeah.
This was right after the last ADCC, right? The last one.
Last time I spoke to Mo, I never ever have any other communication with him other than the 2 incidents I just described.
So we've talked about the lead up. We've talked about the things that have led to the big issue at hand, because the reality of it is all that other stuff is just kind of nonsense. It's he said, she said. It's just kind of riff-raff, little banter and batter between 2 people. Who really cares? So the important thing to talk about are the allegations about the fixed fight. So
I just make there's a bridge, because I'm going to dive in.
No, go ahead.
But this is typical Gordon Ryan, right? He engages you in a topic. He can't hang because he's not very smart. I mean, he's very good at grappling, but he's not, like, his style is trolling. And trolling cannot, by definition, it cannot have depth to it. Because as soon as you get into like deeper questions and you start questioning the narrative, he changes topics, right? He does that over and over. Every time I've argued with him, it's a constant thing. Like, he changes topics because he can't go past that surface of the argument. And then he goes on to the next one. And you address that, and he goes on to the next one, right? I don't think he wanted to engage on an argument with me about over like jiu-jitsu teams, because I think deep down, everyone who gives it some thought knows that I'm right, and it's not difficult to show it. He goes on. He probably calls Mo, or Mo saw the post or something. I think they live together. I don't know. Like, but there's probably some communication amongst them. Like 2 hours later, after Gordon posts, he goes on and says Robert Drysdale was involved in the fixed fight. So you see that it's ad hominem. You see that it's personal, because they changed topics completely. We were talking about a team issue, and now instead of addressing the issue that I brought up, right, and I started it, like I made a claim, they don't tackle me there. They come after the messenger personally, because it was a campaign to discredit me and not address the issue at hand. So that's the bridge between these 2 topics. It's ad hoc. That's, to me, it's like, it's a clear case of it being personal. Like, they don't like, okay, you don't like me, that's fair. Like, not even Jesus was liked by everyone. Who am I to try? Like, I get that some people aren't going to like you. But, I think it's interesting to notice that there's something there. Like, I wonder I'm curious, like, so there's a deeper feeling of resentment.
I will agree with you on Gordon Ryan is the perfect troll. I will not comment on to Gordon Ryan's intelligence, because I just don't want to sling dirt like that. I don't think you meant that as harshly as you said it. I just want to make sure we comment on that. But there is, you're absolutely right when you talk about Gordon Ryan's pivots in arguments. Style of interacting with people. Yeah. He does, rather than address the facts, he will pivot towards, well, that's why you're broke. That's why I'm better than you. I'm rich. You suck. You guys are horrible. I'm the greatest. And all his fans jump on. And again, I love Gordon
Buy
Ryan.
my DVD. They buy the DVD.
Exactly. And I'll just be perfectly honest with you. These are things that I'm not great at, and maybe I'm broke for that reason. Maybe it's the reason why I don't understand the big picture, and I'm living the life that I live.
There's a lot of reasons you're broke.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not broke. You're not broke.
But I appreciate you. Thank you.
Amazing friends, man. You got family. You got people who love you, man. Like, you gotta
I understand that. Thank you.
The notion of success. You gotta stop rejecting. You gotta start rejecting it. It's not.
Thank
it's
you,
not.
I appreciate that. So let's get to the point. And again, I heard everything that led up to it, and I'm 100% in agreement to you. So unfortunately, the reason why we're on here isn't about this backstory. It isn't about we follow.
Everyone wants to hear. This is the only part of the interview that people are going to listen to.
Of course. Everybody's going to fast forward.
We're going to timestamp it.
Exactly.
The only part that people care
about.
It's
important to get the backstory. It's important to get to what happened, how we led to that point. But I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Rob. Like, I am your friend, and I truly, truly, truly believe that you are one of the pillars of the jiu-jitsu community. And I am well aware of the way things worked in those days. Throwing fights between teammates was common. Splitting money after the fight was common. Jiu-jitsu was a different world back then. I look at the allegations, and when I heard the way things went down, there was a slight part of me that said, wow, like, I know that this could or could not be right, but there is some pretty overwhelming evidence that points to the direction that that fight was fixed. Now, I'm of the opinion that even if it wasn't that big of a deal. You still submitted, now I'm just being honest with you, you still submitted Marcello Garcia in about 3 minutes of a match with a dart choke. So to say that Marcello Garcia was tired, it's not like you took him deep into the 15-minute mark and ended up, what you could say, and I won't say this, but you could say that you got lucky and caught him in a dart choke, but hey, you still won. You know what I'm talking about? I would accept that as a viable conclusion. Now, Andre Galvao getting thrown out and having to do the trial to next year because of the fixed fight allegations. It's weird to me because I don't understand any of that, because it's very, very vague. Because why do you punish Andre Galvao but not punish you? If there is a fixed fight allegation, how come you get to do the super fight the next year, but Andre Galvao has to do the trials?
What charisma magic did you pull to get that?
Right. So here's my question to you. There is some, if you point things in your history major, you are a history man, you understand facts. There is some subjective facts, and pretty overwhelmingly subjective facts, that lead to the direction that the fight was fixed. And I'm your friend, and I love you, I really do. And I want to give you the opportunity to address that blankly. And I'm going to ask you, right to your face in front of everybody watching, did you throw that fight? What happened in that fight? Explain to us the circumstance.
I'll address the part that everyone wants to hear first, and then we can give it a little more background, right? Me, I'm going to look at the camera so people, Robert Louis Drysdale, I have never organized, orchestrated, requested, suggested, or needed a fixed fight in my life, okay? I am not responsible for what other people do. Me, what I did wrong, if I had a time machine and I'm like, I'm going to do the right thing, what do I have done different? Absolutely, there's nothing to do different. What can I do? What could I have done different? Okay, I didn't need or suggest a fixed fight. That's an easy one to tackle. Now, what else is going on? I can only speak for me. Now, I'm not going to go around like I've never done this, Kevin. Like I'm in a tough spot here, because if I go around, it's bragging, and I don't like to do that. But I am pressed into a corner here, whereas if I don't give you a little more history, right, I come across as a liar or I come across as a bragger. So I have a decision. I'm going to brag or I'm going to lie. And I'm going to brag a little bit. And I don't want to get to do that. But in those days, Andre did not score an advantage on me in practice. Like, I'm not bragging. Now, you can ask anyone. Like, at his best day, he would not score an advantage on me. And it's a style thing. I understand Andre Galvao is a much better, he's much more accomplished grappler than I ever will be. And I'm a fan to the fact, like, I have a lot of respect for Andre because I know how hard he works and how competitive he is. And I have nothing but respect for merit. But it's a style thing. And he never matched up well against Garcia either. I think Andre Galvao's record against Marcello Garcia is 0-8 or 0-9. Like, he never beat Garcia. He's lost every single time. It's the same thing with me. I've competed against Andre 3 times and I tapped him all 3 times. And in practice, it was the same thing. I never had an issue. And I'm not saying, guys, I don't like to, I always tell people, never talk about training. What happens on the mat, stay on the mat. I say this to my students every week. But I'm in a position where if I don't give a little background, I come across as like, oh, you're a lying piece of crap, right? And you can ask anyone, don't believe me. There are hundreds of witnesses here. You can ask anyone from Checkmat those days, Braza days. I know, like, Pablo Popovich and Wagner Hosha were part of that camp. You can ask them. Like, it doesn't, look, my self-esteem, I've worked very, very hard in my life to not allow my self-esteem to be affected in any way, shape, or form by other people. How I feel about myself and my scars, my battle scars, I feel about them. I don't allow other people the power to make me feel good or bad. That's my superpower. My self-esteem and how I feel about myself, my own accomplishments, that's no one's power. That's my power. I determine how I feel. And I don't feel inadequate over my career. There are things I could have done better, okay? But I don't have any regrets. Even my failed drug test, which comes up every single time I'm walking my dog at the park. There's someone that goes on there, yeah, you're walking your dog at the park, but you failed the UFC drug test 8 years ago. It's like, man, like, you can't,
Robert, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second there. We both know if they did a drug test for the ADCC, there wouldn't be an ADCC anymore. We can say that. We can say that flat out. To be honest with you, there's a reason why they don't do drug tests for the ADCC.
That's the other part of the conversation. It's shocking that, like, Mo, once again, he has nothing to say. So he goes, you failed the drug test. I'm like, really? You want to talk about drug testing? Great topic. Let's bring USADA to the next ADCC. I'd love to see that. Right. So it's a double standard. You can see it's personal, because if you really cared about steroids, well, he'd be testing the last ADCC. Right. So you see that the preoccupation here is not with the issue of steroid usage. The issue is, what can we do to discredit Robert Drysdale? Right. So you can see that, by their actions, they reveal their true intentions. It's nothing to do with justice. It's nothing to do with, giving Marcello Garcia credit or doing the right thing. We don't like Drysdale. Okay. And I understand I'm not a very likable person when people don't know me. People that don't know me often don't like me because the way I talk, I come across as arrogant. I'm very combative. I have no issue speaking my mind and picking a fight. I understand that as a personality trait. I'm too old to change, and I'm not going to. People who know me love me. Ask anyone who has spent time with me on or off the mats over the years, and you ask them, what about Robert's integrity, character? Ask them. Someone who knows me. People who don't know me, they can talk, they can say whatever they want. They don't know me. And if happens to be the majority of the jiu-jitsu community who hates my guts, well, okay, I don't know if that's the case. I get a lot of support. I got over 100 messages like, Rob, you're the man, and this kid does not deserve your time. He hasn't done a quarter of what you have done in life. Let him talk. He's just desperate for attention. And maybe I should never have engaged with this guy to begin with. But I think that's what it comes down to. Like, I'm not perfect, man. I never said I was, but like, to see people that don't know me try to, like, discredit me and call me names, and, like, it's like it's more a reflex of themselves. It's less to do with me. It has less to do with, the issue at hand. It has more to do with, the fact that I have been successful in my jiu-jitsu career, and I have the ability to be successful well outside my jiu-jitsu career. I know I have that. Like, I do have potential to do other things. And I think that bothers some people. Like, Mo came after me for my book. He's like, your book only sold because you sent a free copy to everyone so they can post on their social media. I'm like, isn't that how you
it's kind of what you do, right?
It's so petty. Like, and they can't even hide it. Like, it's just like, pay attention at what the motivation is. And then it's just like poison, man. It's like inside of them. It's just like spitting poison. And the crazy part is, I come across as a hater. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm trying to draw. I never attacked Danaher ad hominem. I've never attacked anyone at Flow Grappling ad hominem. I never attacked Mo Hassin ad hominem. I think I've called Gordon an idiot a few times, but in heated debates, sometimes that happens.
He brings it out of you. To your credit, Gordon has a way to push buttons, and if he's gonna push back on people calling him an idiot and saying bad things about him, that's his game. He wants to get you upset. He's very good at it.
Like, he brings it there.
He does.
Like, he's the initiator more often than not, I feel like. And I think he would agree with that. But what I would love to know briefly was that, those were the two initial voices, but very quickly the discourse was flooded by other voices, your contemporaries and other people that are potentially involved. And I think we have to start with the big one. Andre responded, seemingly confirming a lot of the suspicions in a response to one of Gordon's comments on Instagram. We'll get into what he said, but I would like to know, have you had any kind of dialogue with Andre since all of this has been happening in the last week?
I will start with, my admiration for Andre over his career. I've known Andre since he was a blue belt. He is a fiercely competitive person. He has a big ego, and that ego has always been his drive. So I'm not shitting on that. I admire his ego because that's what keeps him going, right? It works. It can work against you too if you don't control it, right? But like that, it's your drive. I get it. I feel the same way in a lot of ways. But he's phenomenal. Like, look at the team he created, man. Like, I don't have that ability. You think I can do that? Manage all those big names? I can't. I trust me. I've tried. I don't have that skill. It's a skill. I don't have it. He's incredible in so many ways, man. I've always looked up to him. But, to say that he threw a match because he's my teammate, I'm like, pause. He was warming up Jacare in 2009. He was giving him advice on how to beat me. He was coaching him throughout the match. I remember these things. I don't hold it against people. You know why? Because I'm like, it's not that I'm forgiveful. I'm more forgetful. Like, people have to remind me of the stuff that people have done to me in the past. I'm like, why are you talking to that guy? And I'm going, why wouldn't I? The guy that did this and that to you before. I'm like, oh yeah, man, I forgot about that. To hear him say that he did, he's a teammate. I'm like, pause. No, you were cornering Jacare. You were giving Jacare advice on how to beat me. And I remember well him warming up Jacare in 2009. So let's not talk about, no, that's not the reason. What he did, I cannot speak for him. Now, is anyone surprised that he's trying to protect his reputation? He's built his life trying to, build a reputation as one of the greatest grapplers in history, which he is. I don't think he has to do what he did, though. Like, was it something like that? I'm like, you can say whatever you want. Don't throw me in there acting like I'm part of it, because he knows perfectly well that I'm not. Because he knows perfectly well what would have happened had we got 1,000% or 5,000%. I can't speak for him. I walked in there to win. Hey, if this is what people are thinking, hey, Andre, I'll give you half the money if you let me win. That didn't happen. It was nothing like that. Trust me. Okay. Now, Damian Maia went and gave an interview, which apparently I was mad at Damian. At first, I was livid, man. I was like, I cannot believe he would say that. And then apparently it's an old interview, and they pulled it up and they pulled it out of context, because we did split the money. But that was something we had agreed on before the event. Like, this is something that people have always done. Back in those days, 30,000, 50,000 reais or whatever. I can't even remember how much it was. Man, I thought I was rich. Today doesn't sound like a lot, but like at the time, like, I'm rich, So we would go, like, if we go in a division, whoever wins splits the money with the other one. These things have always happened. Like, and that part is true. We did go rock, paper, scissors between me, Damian, and Andre, because only 2 people could represent the team in the open. We had 3 guys had potential to win, but we only had 2 of us could go. So we did do that. That part is true. We did split the money because that's something we had agreed on beforehand. That was already an arrangement, because, guys, if you guys don't know this is almost everyone doing that, by the way. That's very, very common. Teammates agree to split the money, especially when they're broke, right? Which we all were at the time. Everyone was broke. So, like, if we all walk out of here with a little something, everyone was happy. So that's something we did agree on. But to say that I needed him to, like, or asked him or participated in a fix, like, I didn't do anything wrong. What did I do wrong? You watch me. Watch me grappling. Look like,
it's cool that when you bring up the point of the actual match too. Like, I watched the match a few times, and I hear people say, "Oh, it looks fishy. It looks." Yeah. I watched that match, and I've seen. Now, there could be a little bit you could say that Andre maybe wasn't as explosive,
People are comparing his match against Verdum to his match with Rob.
The reality of it is if you think about you as a grappler at that time, and Andre, this is not the Andre Galvao of 2012, 2016, when he was on top of the world, when he was the giant killer that he is now. This is Andre Galvao in 2002, when he was still relatively new to that high level of competition. He hadn't become, in his mind, the killer that he was, and you were already at that level. If you watch that match thinking of those things in context, I don't see anything wrong with that match in that frame of mind. And to be honest with you, and people are going to get mad at me, but I don't care. I watched Gordon Ryan and Gary Tonon's match, and if you watch that match, it looks pretty damn similar to the match between you and Andre Galvao.
We're just going to take a moment to say, in no way are we insinuating anything about that match.
I will tell this flat out. I love Gordon, I love Dan Hare, and I love all of those guys. I really do. But I am just trying to get to the bottom in a factual manner because people that I know are being drawn through the mud, and I want to be able to sit through this and do what I can do in whatever capacity I can to get to the bottom of these things. I'm just sick of all the bullshit.
And in that spirit of getting to the bottom of it, taking a bird's eye view from the way you're describing the situation of mutual benefit, sharing prize money, it sounds altruistic. It sounds like it's coming from a good place, a desire for everybody to be able to compete in the sport that we love without worrying about food on the table. But can you see how people unfamiliar with that reality would see that and go, that is a very shady business practice. That is a shady, possibly not ethical practice.
You only listen to Gordon's narrative and his edited videos, right? And it's very dishonest because, once again, data should be broad, right? If you narrow data, you can create any case you want. It's easy to make a case when you narrow the data, and that's what they're good at, editing. And it's a trial by Instagram, we call it, right? Like you make it very dumb it down, and when it's very tiny and dumb, and then you shed all this light on stupidity and like, yes, look, and that's how these guys operate, man. It's not just dishonest. It's sort of unintelligent. Like it really is. But that's the nature of the internet. Like that's how this game
That's the nature of the world right now, to be honest with you. We live in a world of
it's fired from the hip.
15 seconds of interaction, and you get your point out there, bloom. No one cares about the context. Yeah. Oh, dope. Done. Move on. Let's read
who we hating? Who we fucking up?
Exactly. If I'm given time to write a paper on data over the last 5 years of tournament results, right? What I said about Gracie Barra Alliance, who I owe no allegiance to, by the way, and the DDS squad, is not, I'll pick anyone apart. I'll debate that. And I said this before, I will debate anyone on that one. Anyone. You put that person, I'll eat them alive in a debate because there's no way on earth I am losing that fight. I know results. I know where to find them, right? But no one's going to read a paper that is 20, 30 pages long because that's a lot. You know how much work
Rob,
that is?
You're talking to two jiu-jitsu journalists. Believe me, we understand. We understand the harsh reality of trying to get people to read anything.
Okay, so you know how much work that would be for me, though. Like I would have to sit down and take like a month out of my life, if not longer, 8 hours a day, collecting data and analyzing, creating, and I wouldn't lose that fight. But I'm so confident of it because I know what the biggest events in the world are. Now, if you narrow it down to super fights, which happen to be 1% of competition, if not less, and you only talk about that 1%, sure, you have any results you want. But if you talk about Pan Ams, no-gi Pan Ams, Worlds, no-gi Worlds, Abu Dhabi Pro, Brazilian Nationals, and you broaden the spectrum of the major competitions in the world, you're going to come up with a very different picture. But no, we don't like those tournaments, so those don't count. This is exactly what confirmation bias is. So I wouldn't lose that because I'm not wrong, right? But how do you get all of that across on an Instagram post?
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah. And before we go too much further, there was something I wanted to loop back on. I did ask if there was any sort of dialogue between you and Andre in this past week since everything has happened. And I would love to know if you've reached out to Damian Maia at all.
Okay, so the Damian episode. So Damian said
because I saw you posted that, yeah.
Out of context, and then like I reached out to a friend we have in common. I was like, man, this is insane. This is insane, and I think it reached Damian's ear at some point. Because I'm not gonna lie, that first day I was pretty like, it's not like, I mean, I think when I filled my drug test, did you see me get mad? Did anyone see me get mad? Like, what did I do? I went silent. You know why? You know why I went silent? 8 years ago, we're still talking about that, but you know why I went silent? Because I was wrong. I shut the fuck up. That's what happened. You know why? I don't have a leg to stand on here. I lied and I put my signature on it saying that I did not take anything and I had taken testosterone for that fight. So you saw me go silent. This time I'm not silent. It's like, whoa, pause. I spent the last 4 years honoring the memory of people who I never met. I should spend 15 minutes to give myself some credit. Like, pause. Like I've done something here. Like, and these guys are trying to take credit for me, trying to discredit me. Like, wait a second. I did do something here, and they're trying to throw it under the, bury it, right? Because that's their MO. But with Damien, then Damien like reached out to me. He's like, he apologized, Rob, it was out of context. I didn't say anything, which is exactly, which he said there is true. We did split the money, but that we did go rock, paper, scissors to who was going to represent the team in the open. But where's the dishonesty there? Right. But under the context of the conversation, when you piece all this together, it looks really bad. And I completely understand someone, seeing things once you have that compartmentalized, encapsulated, stupid narrative full of edits and lack of context. And then Damien did the right thing. By the way, I would like to publicly thank Damien for that, because it was the right thing to do. He came out in my defense. It's like, pause, this is what happened. And you can read his post. It's on his page. I reposted it on my page. Later, some other people like Paulo Rezende, who was our coach. Leo was in Sao Paulo, but Paulo was with us Paulo Rezende was with us, and he's like Marcello Garcia's original coach, and a very, very good coach, very reputable, a very good reputation in Brazil. And he came out and said something, hey guys, I was there. I saw what was happening. Later, my ex-wife, Michelle, did the same thing. I mean, how many people can get their ex-wife to publicly defend them like that, right? And then I have people questioning mine, like, I mean, could you get your ex-wife to speak out on your behalf on the internet in the middle of a war like that?
I hope I never have to find out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So and then, between those, and then many other people came on, it's the same thing. Like, I think Wagner Rocha said something, like some other people made some comments too, and gave it a little more context. And the thing is, these things get buried, right? Like objective reality is a secondary, priority. It's just not, it is more like what people look at likes, and likes determines the truth, which is a terrifying issue, by the way. Like, to me, that's one of the scariest features of the 21st century, is the impact of social media on public opinion. It is terrifying, because it's a forum for stupidity. And you see, like, I don't want to offend anyone, but like, it's, people are become very opinionated over the internet. Like, we saw this last COVID thing, and we had people who read a Wikipedia article, and they're challenging virologists with 2 PhDs and 40 years in a lab, and they're telling these people they don't know what they're talking about. It's pretty shocking. It's scary, like how overconfident people are in regards to their lack of knowledge. And this is, so what's happening in jiu-jitsu is really, it's a side effect of a much, much bigger problem. And, I don't know what to say. Like, what Damien said is true, but if you put it into context and you read his post explaining what he was saying, what did I do wrong? Like, what, because I shared money with a teammate? That was we had that agreement before we left for the United States. That's like a given, like whoever might help you, you don't, it's not even, people do that. Like, we know that's everyone has always done that. Like, that's such a common practice. If people want to shit on me for that, I'm like, okay, but I don't feel guilty here.
It's so funny. Like, there's a lot of really good information being shared here, but all I can think about is just Damian Maia losing rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
I don't know why that's
probably
funny.
So bummed.
I don't know why. I just want to know, like, what did he go with? Like,
was it the paper,
was
the
it
rock?
paper, like,
walk us through the rock, paper, scissors contest.
Give us a fight commentary breakdown of that rock, paper,
break
scissors
that down
match.
for us? So, Robert, man, like, just off the bat here, like, again, I love you. I think you're amazing. I really love everything you've done for the jiu-jitsu community, and I appreciate your candidness in this conversation. And I hope that, at least, if anything, it gives people that are blanketly anti-Robert Drysdale an opportunity to at least take your factual data or your presentation of the facts into consideration before they put the kibosh down on you. Because, there's going to be some people that don't care. They're going to come after you anyway. It's not going to make a difference. But at least some people will at least hear your side of the story.
I would like to extend an invitation. Anyone who has, if you want to get to know someone, you should spend some time with them, right? Like, you can ask anyone who has ever stepped foot in my gym. You can ask any of my close friends, former training partners, both in Brazil and the United States. I have had many coaches in my life. I have a good relationship with every single one of them. I have pictures on the wall of every single one of my coaches, right? You can ask, I have a track record in this sport. If you want to judge me, you should either get to know me, at the very least, ask people who know me well, because trial by Instagram it's like witch hunting. It really is. It's a modern, you think witch hunt are things of the past. I'm like, we're watching it. And I'm not saying I'm a victim here. I feel still like it is what it is, man. Like, I'm a sort of like in the public, eye, and then that's going to come with consequences. But I think that the person judging is the one really at the loss here, because it's very ignorant. Like, people don't know how ignorant they are when they're judging from afar. without knowing anything about the person or the situation. I mean, sure you can. It's a free country, right? It comes with free speech, but I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're so opinionated with so little know-how.
Okay, well, I think that we've exhausted the topic. I really feel like we covered everything we wanted to. We got some definitive answers and a lot more clarity on the context. And we want to talk about more fun things that Kevin and I are both really interested in. But before we do, I'd just love to ask, in your opinion, what happens now? A lot of very big names have slung a lot of mud. There's been a lot of very divisive rhetoric in the last week. One of the biggest tournaments in jiu-jitsu got involved. In your opinion, what exactly happens? Do we just, does this get chewed up by the news cycle, or?
There are moving pieces in this story that I am unaware of, that you're unaware of, that we are unaware of. This goes up. This goes all the way up. And I don't know, man. Honestly, here's the most funny thing. I was just thinking about this because I was wondering, like, what is it that about my jiu-jitsu career that I'm so in love with? And like, you know what, like, I'm going to show you this, right? This is my room of all my like stuff I collect around the world. I'm not like, look where my medals are. Like, I don't know if you can see them. They're on the floor there. You see them? I never even, I didn't know where my ADCC trophy was for like 6-7 years until I got divorced and I finally found it in a box in a garage.
That is so funny.
Like, if someone took my trophy or these IBJJF gold medals or my black belt from me, if IBJJF told me tomorrow, Rob, we are stripping you of your black belt and you can no longer teach class with your black belt. If you want to teach class, you have to teach with a white belt or an open jacket, but you're no longer allowed to wear a black belt. And I'm asking myself, and I sincerely ask myself, and I go, how would that change me? And I go, because you know what happens with these medals over time? They just collect dust. They mean less and less every day that goes by. And it's not cynicism, it's maturity. You look back at your journey and you go, what did I take from this journey? And you go, I took from this journey the scars, right? The lessons, the battles. Like, I know what I went through to be there. I know I climbed that Mount Everest. I've been there. I know what it's like. So it doesn't change anything to you personally. Like, I think less and less of my accomplishments in that. I'm not judging people who have their medals all over their gym, right? Like, I think you should be proud of your accomplishments. If you walk in my gym, you're not going to see a single medal. There's a minute there where my employees put it up and I had them put it down. I didn't want my medals on the wall because I didn't want my life to be a museum. I don't judge people who do that. I don't think I'm better than them, but that's how I think. My biggest accomplishments are yet to come. They're not behind me. They're ahead of me. So I'm not going to allow this petty high school dispute to define me. I'm not going to allow, people to try, because I mean, they can say whatever they want at the end of the day, but they can do it. Does it hurt who I am and how I perceive myself? That's the big question. Is my self-esteem tainted in any way? And I'm like, no, because I know what I'm capable of. I know what I did. And that to me that's the treasure. It's the know-how, it's the wisdom, it's the scars. It's like the memories of having done that. These are pieces of metal, man. They just collect dust. I'm like, okay, do whatever you want with them.
Well, Rob, I'll tell you one thing. I agree with everything you say, but there ain't nobody taking my fucking black belt. So I don't care what the youngers just have to say. They're going to out of my cold, dead hands.
Your arthritis-ridden hands.
You would be the same person the next day. You see, that's my point. Because the person you are is not the ornament, that saturated ornament you wear around your waist every night. That's not who you are. You are something else. You are something that was forged out of the pain and struggle and everything you went through to be where you are. That's what forged you.
Well, hopefully one day I will have the same Zen mastery of my own self that you have attained.
I can appreciate the Jedi calm with which you're approaching this situation, but I got into jiu-jitsu for the drip. So
This is something I'm working on. Like, this is not something I have mastered, but I'm aware of it. I'm moving towards that. I am working towards that so I could completely devoid of any, I don't have to have attachments to my previous jiu-jitsu competitive life. If that's all taken away from me, I will still smile and love my children and love my family and those memories. No one can take that away from me other than death. Death can take those memories away from me, nothing else. So that's my treasure, man. It's my journey. I've had an amazing journey in jiu-jitsu. I still have an amazing journey, and there's more to come. So I'm so grateful for having found jiu-jitsu when I found, because it changed me. I remember who I was. I remember who I was before jiu-jitsu. I was a terrified kid who got bullied. Do you know what about bullying, man? I got bullied more than anyone else you know. I was an American kid in Brazil. Try. You try to talk to me about bullying. Brazilians don't understand political correctness. Brazilians don't have a word for bullying. The word doesn't exist. Try to get one of your Brazilian friends to translate that. See if they can't translate it. It doesn't exist, right?
Well,
So,
on that incredibly saccharine note, I think it's very important, just because we don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's very public knowledge. Kevin and I, huge fans of the upcoming documentary you've been working on. And while, obviously you've had to focus on a lot of issues. Oh wait, do you have merch? Is that a shirt?
There you go. That's a nice shirt.
Oh,
that's a nice shirt. I like that.
Oh,
shirt.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We would love to know, now that it seems like things are winding down with the controversy, are there any updates to share on the production? I know things have been in kind of limbo for a little while.
Here's the stake that and this is largely because of my lack of experience, is my belief, and it was a very ambitious belief, that I can, squeeze in 140 years of history into 90 minutes, and it's not doable. So we have to cut so much from the story. We have had about like 4 or 5 final edits, final cuts, and none of them are doing the story justice. So we go back and start. We've done this documentary like 4 or 5 times over, and it's because I'm aware of the importance, because these grandmasters are dying, right? That you can't redo what we did. We can't redo it because they're all dying. You cannot redo closed guard. It's a one-time thing, and we understand the responsibility of that. And it was an accident. I didn't realize how important this project was until after we had finished filming. It was that's when it clicked. I'm like, holy shit, this is very important, because it was more of like a passion project out of boredom more than anything. And I want to do it right. I want to do it right, and it is making progress. It's one of those things that, because I have a small team, it takes a lot longer. You can ask anyone who has ever edited film, and they'll tell you, man, it is hundreds of hours of work to get like 10 minutes in, and having to start that all over again throws a monkey wrench in the whole conversation. The good news is we have amazing footage that can't be reshot. We have grandmasters who are the founding fathers of MMA and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu on camera talking about the early days. But, since I'm here, I'm not, hope this doesn't come across as a sales pitch, but if you really want to know the history in a very superficial way, but still in more depth than the film, opening closed guard is out. Like, so we were able to get a lot more information in the book than we ever will be able to get in the film format. So if you really don't want to read the book, then you have to wait for the documentary. But if you're curious to have an idea of how BJJ come about, open and closed guard, if you want to get your hands dirty, download José Tufi-Kairos' PhD dissertation online. It's free. By Choque by Roberto Pedreira and Craze by Roberto Pedreira, volume 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 2 respectively. And if you read Portuguese, there's more literature on this. You can look into it. I recommend it in my book. But it is a fascinating story. I think everyone should know it.
I'm a huge advocate of your book. We both are. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like if folks at home, if you haven't read it yet, go get your copy, Opening Closed Guard. It's absolutely amazing.
I've been working through a reread, and it hits really different.
And buy more, because the second edition has a little overwrite for me in the beginning pages. I get my name in the jacket, so it gives me a little bit of a flair.
Did you get photographed?
I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
We'll have a second edition coming out in maybe a year or so. And maybe long, I don't know. It's going to be like after the film is ready, whenever that is. But there are some more interviews that we're adding, because, I think I might be upgrading, because I think it might be an ongoing thing for the rest of my life, where I'm constantly upgrading with new information, because jiu-jitsu is changing and we got to record it. We got to keep track of these changes. And I think it's a debt we have towards future generations to report history accurately. So for the record, I want to say one more thing before I let you guys go. I have nothing personal against Gordon Ryan or John Danaher or anyone from Flow Grappling, or I think Mo has stepped on, he insulted me more than a few times. He called me a coward, called me a cloud chaser, right? Called me a coward. That's a big statement, for a guy who's never fought. I fought in the cage, man. I wasn't the best MMA fighter, but I fought in the cage. To call me, I'm many things. A coward is not one of them. So I think that was unfair. But I don't hold grudges with people. I know I come across that way as someone who's hateful, but I think history is being written and accurate. And I've seen this movie before. I saw it in the 1930s and 40s in Brazil, and we're watching it all over again. And I think it's absurd that people don't see what's actually happening. It has nothing to do with what's best for the sport. This is about, politics have always been about two things. What are they, guys? It's always been two things behind everything. What is it? What are they?
History and public opinion.
Money and power, right? Those are the two things. Those, if it's always been about those two things, right? It's no different now. This has nothing to do with what's best for jiu-jitsu. This is a coordinated attack on jiu-jitsu because of money and power. And that's what it comes down to. Cool,
man. Rob, once again, before we close it out, I just want to tell you that I don't give a shit what anybody says. I fucking love you. I will expound my support for you, any opportunity I can give. And I hope that the people understand that I didn't have you on here because I'm your friend to vindicate you. I didn't really do that. I did this to give you an opportunity to speak your mind. Because like I said, when I found out about all these things, I was a part of me that got caught up in the hoopla that was a bit disappointed. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe Robert would do this, this, and this. And like, I can't believe that we can't have this conversation. Why would he lie about these things? But I will tell you this, that I don't care what anybody says. I'm convinced. And I feel like when you tell me something to my face, I don't think that you would lie to me. And I'm going to hold true to that because I hold you in the highest regard. And I hope that other people that are watching this will understand that and take what you say for what it is, for the truth that it is. And that's where I'll leave it off with that.
I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. For the record, I'm very far from perfect, man. Like, don't hold me in too high regard.
That's what makes you perfect. And I've said that before, because imperfect people recognize the fact of their imperfections and they still continue to strive forward. That is the opinion of perfection. That is the idyllic person that is, well, you get the general idea. I can't speak. If I wrote it out, it would sound better.
Can you say my eulogy, man?
Yeah, exactly.
Damn.
Anyway.
Thank you. It means a lot.
I'm sweating like a stuck pig over here, Rob. So let's call this thing so we can go get something to eat before I fall asleep.
Rob, it really is. It means a lot that you gave us your time and you allowed us to ask some tough questions. I know there are other people that might get offended, and we really appreciate the dialogue, man, because it feels like truth wins when people can just speak openly about things. So thank you as always for your time.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. Thank you for the opportunity. Last thing, if I offended anyone in exchanges online, which I probably did at some point, you do have a temper like any other human. I apologize. Like I never wanted to offend anyone or attack anyone. If I attacked anyone personally, and I think I did that at some point, I apologize. I don't think that conversation should be held ad hominem. We should, you got to keep your cool. And I lost my cool a couple times there. So it is what it is, but I apologize.
Well, I think that's it.
I think we're good.
You think we're good?
I think we're good.
Yeah. Well, to everybody either watching or listening, thank you for joining us on the inaugural episode of the Aces Jiu Jitsu Club podcast. We really appreciate the support, and with everybody watching, we're able to tell really important stories and get some good tales on tape. And hopefully Rob comes back because, the guy's an endless well of stories. Well, to everybody who wants different types of content that we produce, be sure to read all the articles that we're putting up, the Aces Jiu Jitsu blog website. I myself contribute articles weekly. Kevin is our big old editor, and we've got a ton of really awesome staff writers that are putting out amazing content that make me think that I should just quit.
Maybe Mr. Drysdale might send us 1,000 words here in the future.
Don't ask for that. No,
is that too much? Is that too much of an ask?
Yeah, no, he can be, like that's a lot for him. For sure. It's not like he's written a full book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we don't want to stress you out, Rob. All right, and to everybody watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and protect your necks. We'll see you next time.